Hey y'all, my name is Jeremy Parsons. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I'm an Americana Texas country singer-songwriter.
Awesome, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, man. We're both in Texas, which is pretty cool. You're in San Antonio, we're here in El Paso. I love connecting with artists, different songwriters, things like that, musicians through something like this through Zoom, because you get to just, talk about art and creativity for a while, from like everything going on around us, just have a simple conversation about creativity and things like that. And so just let me do my quick introduction real quick. Hey guys, my name is Isaac. I'm the host for the El Paso Creators podcast show. And just Jeremy, just to start off, just for people who don't know who you are, what is it that you do? Just give us like a quick 2-3 minutes maybe of who you are and what is it that you do.
Okay, well, like I said, I'm a singer-songwriter from San Antonio, predominantly in the Americana genre. You can call it country, whatever you want. I'll try not to be offended by that. But the yeah, I'm a traveling musician full time. I sing, songwrite, just everything I can to do with music. Just try to get it out there. It's my passion. It's what I love doing most in this world, and I'm gonna keep doing it. So right now I'm playing all over Texas, and more this year I'll get out of state. I'll go up to Virginia, North Carolina, back to Tennessee. I lived in Nashville for about 10 years, so I like to go back up there and stomp around every once in a while. Make sure they know I'm still living.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And what is it what type of music do you usually create a lot? What's the meaning behind your music? If you got to describe the type of music you make, how would you describe it?
I would say it's basically like I'm always waiting for life to happen around me. And I think that's what a lot of writers that I really admire, that's what I like listening to, people that are just very aware and observant of the way that life works and the way that people handle it. So we're writing about humans and human experiences. It's humans writing about humans. That's just what we're doing.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and I like asking that question because a lot of people, they have a reason why they write their lyrics or why they do songwriting or why the reason they're a singer and all that. So that would be your biggest reason, right? Like the way humans interact or the way human life works.
Yeah.
That's kind of how
Yeah.
you write your music.
Yeah, the human pulse is my inspiration, I guess. Like it just the way what the actions that people take while they're alive.
Yeah.
It's what we're listening to when we seek out music. We're getting some kind of experience that someone had, and they're transferring it into art. Yeah.
And what first got you into music? Was music the first thing you ever wanted to do? Is that what you were aiming to do with your life or?
Actually, like, man, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was going to college. Like, I always enjoyed playing sports. I was literally going to college for kinesiology because as I was going to college, because I think my mom wanted it. So I was trying to make her happy, which is just never going to happen anyway. So the I just got to the point where I was like, man, I really enjoy this, and it was working, and I was starting to get paid for it, and people wanted to hear more and see more of it. So I was like, I think I can do this. This feels right.
Yeah, it's like the
Uh,
natural thing is like something that finally genuinely makes you happy, something that genuinely is like it feels like you're connected to it. Yeah, is that how it
yeah,
was?
yeah. Oh, totally. It was like one of those things. I was like, I never thought this could be a thing, but like this is working. So why go against the current? Like it's
Absolutely.
flowing in a direction that I enjoy. I'm gonna get in the boat and just ride it on down,
And let's talk about like the support system because you know how like when a lot of people want to become artists or musicians or even any type of artist or creative in general, like the first thing they get is like off the bat negativity of like no, it's just a hobby, you can't make a living off of that.
Yeah.
That's a two type of question thing is like were you ever supported like that or like when you first came into music did you get the support right off the bat or was it different for you?
Yeah, I think even in those stories, like even in the ones that we see, like that they've been kind of Hollywooded out, there's always at least one person in your corner. But there's the naysayers are always there's more volume in the naysayer group. Like they're the loudest and the most, they're just the most outspoken ones for some reason.
Absolutely.
But the quiet, supportive ones are the ones that keep you in the ring, keep you fighting. And my dad was always extremely supportive of me. He was actually the one that recommended that I tried to move to Nashville. I was like, well, I'm going to go up realistically, like I'll go up there and give it like, 6 to 8 months and see what happens. And within
Yeah.
the first 3 months, it was obvious I was supposed to be doing it. But my dad has always been in my corner. And then there's like, I split it between like about half of my family is supportive. I have a small family though. So it's like, It's about half of my family is supportive and the other half tries to just like kind of be like, so when are you going to get a real job? And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God. Yeah.
so when are you going to acknowledge that I'm working?
Yeah. So how
It's
did you
like,
deal with that? Like, how did you deal
yeah,
with them saying that? Because I had that same feeling too. Like, when I first started, because I used to be a photographer, graphic designer, videographer. I used to do it all, right. And so I always got
yeah.
that. They're like, my family was always telling my other family, they were like, can you believe this? Like, his brother wants to be a teacher, his sister wants to be like a nurse, and then he wants to be an artist. And it's like, that doesn't make sense. How did you deal with that? Like that whole your family being negative towards you on your start?
Well, it's just one of those things. Like it's almost like, dude, we have something that not everybody figures out, and that's what you enjoy doing. People go through their entire lives. Sometimes you see some people on their deathbed who still haven't figured it out. And like
Absolutely.
we have something that, like, it's not an age thing either. You see 50 years old, like 25-year-olds in the same place that a 50-year-old is in.
Yeah.
So it's like we have that, like that's our body armor. So like anything negative that they throw at you, it deflects it because we have genuine happiness and pride in what we're doing. So it's like it's almost like one of those deals. It's just like, you know, get me with what you got. It was like what I take it as is a projection of your own misery onto me. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm okay with being the happy guy that everybody attacks. Come
Yeah.
on.
Because you're at the end, you're doing what makes you happy, and
Yeah,
they're still
yeah.
trying to figure it out.
And their words won't change anything. I'm still doing what makes me happy. Like they
Absolutely.
just need to say those negative things for some reason. I'm
Mhm.
assuming it's for themselves. Therefore, it's not actually my problem.
Yeah.
Like
And so let's transition back to you when you were going to Nashville for the first time. It was your first time pursuing music, right? And then moving to like somewhere like Nashville. How was that transition for you?
it was scary, man. I think anytime you jump out of your comfort zone, like I was so young and new to like the whole industry, and that was literally like diving in like the kiddie pool right into the deep end. It was like that, and it was just as filled with sharks as you would think it would be. And but I was lucky enough to like the you always go with my gut feeling because I like the music kind of takes you, or your art or your job will take you in the right direction. You just have to be really good at reading people, especially in the entertainment industry, because there's more takers than there are givers.
Yeah.
um but yeah, so it was scary, but like the immediate reaction was very positive for me, and I was extremely lucky. I had some people take me under their wing that like put me in places that I was able and capable on my own to survive on the back end. And it's why I'm able to still have a career right
Mhm.
now, like by myself, like basically running everything because I know how to. I know what it takes.
Right. And
Um,
did you have any like role models that kind of like inspired you or motivated you to kind of do this? Or while you were going through that whole journey of moving over there and pursuing music, like who did you really look up to? Who was actually really there to like inspire you and things like that?
well, it goes back to my dad being, he was always super supportive of the entire journey. But then I met a guy who ended up being my manager until he ended up passing away. But his name was Keith Atkinson, and he taught me so much. He started out his career as a legal aid for Frank Sinatra, and like had all these really cool, amazing stories, and was just very wise, and just taught me how to like kind of keep my cool and navigate the music industry, because as an artist it can be really aggravating that people just don't understand
Yeah.
sometimes, and you can't make them understand, but you just have to understand that you're in it for, to you, what is the right reasons, and they're in it for what they think is the right reasons. So like you can't change a made up mind in that situation. They're like, I'm in it for the money. I was like, well, money's nice, we all need to make it, but I'm in it because I truly enjoy this is a passion for me.
Hmm.
So he taught me a lot about navigating,
Hmm.
um basic, I guess, myself, and how to handle myself in the music industry, which is
And
awesome.
what was like kind of like the first struggles, I guess? And I like asking this question because like for anybody who's becoming like a new music artist or things like that, they kind of hit bumps that they're like unsure if they should be hitting or not. And so it's like, what have been some of the mistakes that you kind of hit right away, but that you also learned from it, or something that you didn't expect, but it happened to you, and you're something like, well, maybe new artists should expect to go through this if they're pursuing like the music scene.
Yeah, I think it's always, it's gonna go back to like the sharks in the industry. Like when people walk up and they promise you something immediately, like it's almost like it's okay to be suspicious. Like if something feels wrong to you and your gut feeling is usually pretty on point, go with your gut feeling in the music industry, because even if you it's like, well, it's too good to be true, it probably is. You hear that a lot, but like in the music industry sometimes it could be legit, but like it's not usually worth the risk or the money. Like that they'll take money from you that you can apply to your career yourself, like printing CDs or going in the studio or something. Like don't fall for all the flash. Like that stuff fades. You want to find genuine people to have around you and keep in your camp. Like we're all going, like I always look at it as like building families.
Right.
We're collecting people that we want to carry with us the rest of our lives.
Hmm.
That's why we like have the friends we have and everything like that. When we leave our little nest, you know, we bring people in that are good energy, that are like not selfish. Like it's a, you know, a get and give situation, and you want that in your business life as well, just as much as you, I mean, you want it everywhere in your life. You want to be
Absolutely.
able to apply it to all aspects.
Yeah. And so how important
uh
would you say is the whole networking side of it, which I know is really important, but also doing collaborations with other artists? Like how important do you see that? Because I see a lot of people always say that they're like, sometimes it's not good to have collaborations. What do you think on that? Like to have collaborations with different artists or to not?
I mean, I don't think it hurts. I think it's some people fall into it more naturally than others. Like I co-write with people, but I don't think I collaborate as much as other people do. And that's, I don't actually know why that is. Someone joked that I'm difficult to work with, but like, that's not really true at all. I just don't, I'm not like a duo guy or anything. Like I'll go and jam with people, but I think collaboration is awesome. um I think you should do it. Like, I mean, why not? Like I mean, I've helped write on like R&B and rap tracks. It was just like good music is good music. If like someone reached out to me and was like, hey dude, obviously I'm super country sounding, but like, you know, if they were like, hey man, I want you to sing this chorus on this rap song, like if I enjoyed the track, I would do it.
Hmm.
Like collaboration is awesome. Good art is good art. And I think, you know, uh it couldn't hurt.
And,
Like, you know.
and on your road into kind of, was it in Nashville when it took off for you, like in the music industry, or like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it was.
So
Yeah.
before anything like took off in Nashville, like what was some of the most challenging parts you faced, or maybe some of the hardest moments, kind of just growing over there, or just, just getting into the industry, like getting your first foot in? What were some of the struggles you kind of went through that um you saw?
I think it's I think it's just it's figuring out, it just we're talking about people so much right now, but it was literally for me the toughest part was like I had a great time a majority of the time, and a lot of it wasn't as much of a struggle. Maybe it's just my mindset too, because struggle is part of your mindset. Like I was so focused on like, you know, this is either going to work for me or it isn't. Like I was very realistic about it. But I think the main struggle for me was trying to figure out people, because you want to trust folks.
Hmm.
You don't want to be like that guy who's just like immediately bitter about everything. And I was like still fairly young, like 21, like really new, like kind of came like from a like small outer section of San Antonio, which like kind of, you know, primarily on the edge of the country. So like, you know, it was very more simple where I was. And then I went to Nashville and it's have a bigger city vibe. Um, Even though San Antonio is huge, like I said, I was on the edge, but like you kind of just have to figure that out. You got to learn to trust yourself and know who you can trust outside of yourself. And that was the biggest struggle for me. Like you want to believe that someone has your best interest in mind, but in the music industry that's not always the case,
Right.
unfortunately. So
And I kind of want to touch the part on like on resources too as well. Like a lot of musicians, when they come into something, they always think, hey, I gotta have the best connections, the best equipment, the best this and that. Did you any have any of that? Or like when you went into the space, like how did you really get started as far as like producing quality, and also having to get started with any type of equipment that you may have had already?
yeah, man, I basically just went word like you again, you meet people that are knowledgeable. Like I'm very aware of like what I don't know, and it's a lot. So it's like a constantly like learning new things, but you see someone who seems knowledgeable in something, you kind of seek them out and be like, hey man, what do you think of this? This is what I have. And they'll usually be like, oh, that's fantastic. Or you need to like sell that on like Facebook Marketplace or something and like upgrade to this, or like here's the mic that you should be using. Like that's the advice you always listen to, because like my lane is like, if you need help writing a song, like I'm your guy. Like I'll help you all day. I'm confident in that arena. Like I know, I don't know everything about it, but I know exactly how the structure and everything needs to be. But
Mhm.
when it comes to gear and stuff, like no, no,
Yeah.
you might as well be building rockets. Like I don't.
Yeah, no, and I always tell everybody this too. I'm like, especially when you're like creating music for the first time, like you don't need that fancy stuff. I mean, there's this documentary I saw one time. It was in Africa where they literally went to junkyards and they got a bunch of trash and they built like drums and guitars and stuff, and dude, the music came out
Totally.
amazing. So I'm like, you don't need the best things to get started. I saw this one artist who he started off like big illustrating books with just ballpoint pens he bought at the Dollar Tree, and it's like
Oh wow.
it's crazy that the mindset of like it's like, do you think it's tough to get started like as a musician in the music industry, or do you think it's like you have a plan that you kind of like pursue that kind of makes it a little bit more easier? Like, let's say I'm a
Uh,
musician myself and I'm kind of getting into the industry myself, like what would you really recommend to focus on first in a way?
I would say focus on yourself, like figure out who you are as an artist, because it is difficult. It's a difficult industry. You have tons of people that are seemingly fighting for just mere relevancy. Like they're trying to put out singles like every month or something like that because they don't want to be forgotten. Like that's what it seems like. And that's what you're in a big pool of a bunch of people that are doing the same thing, but it almost comes off like a competition when you make it like that. It's like you wait for the art to come to you and then you create it and you put it out and the people who enjoy listening to you are there. But I always say work on yourself, because if you don't know who you are, you can't give anything to like
Mhm.
your listeners.
Staying true to yourself, right, in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you have to know who that self is before you
exactly.
could stay true to it. So,
Hmm.
and the cool thing about that is, no matter what style of music you're making from that point on, the people have already connected with you because you gave them you from the start.
Hmm.
Like it's always been you, even if it's a different sound surrounding it. It's like, oh, look, it's kind of different, but it's still very clearly Jeremy.
Hmm.
Like they'll say stuff like that, and that's nice. That shows that you did the work that it takes, because artists are just I mean, we're obviously people
Right.
who create art for people who aren't artists. So it's like we see things differently and we give it back to people in a different perspective that they might not have thought of it the same way. It's like comedians. Like when you hear a joke, you're like, man, I've never heard anybody talk about like
Yeah.
that, like that. But it's an everyday thing that we all experience.
Yeah.
That's what music is capturing too, and it's part of the self-awareness too. It's like if you work on yourself, all of that just naturally finds you in the process. It
Mhm.
all comes. It's a gift package that comes with doing the work.
Absolutely. And how
Yeah.
how's your whole process like the way you write your music, or the way you kind of start the whole process of beginning to end in the music production? Like, what are the things that you mainly focus on when you produce your own music, things like that?
I would say, well, I usually work with other producers because it's like, so I'll do demos and stuff around the house, but like, I like seeking out people that are or like really connect with the songs and then also have their own style. So like they're able to like present me in a very specific way, and they're like I'm the bird and they put me in this cool little production cage.
Well, it's
By choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I just did a previous recording right now, and they told us that like for music artists, it's sometimes intimidating to either get on stage or to go into a studio, and how do you deal with those type of like fears you have as like either getting in front of people or pursuing something new that, it's like going into a studio for the first time and things like that. Like how do you deal with those fears as an artist to kind of get out there? Because a lot of people don't like to get out there, but they want to be an artist. So it's like, how do you deal with those type of fears?
Yeah, I've actually been lucky enough, like I never even thought about being scared, and I overthink a lot of things, but there was something about walking onto the stage that always felt like not like I deserve to be here, but like I feel like this is kind of right. Like I feel like my feet are supposed to be right here in front of this microphone. Like I've never really been uncomfortable in that situation. The studio is slightly different because the first time now I go in the studio, I'm pumped. I can't wait to like, because writing is like conception, you have it, you like start in like the studio, you get to deliver your baby and you're like, hey, here's my baby world. But the like going in for the first time, you just like, God, I hope I don't look like completely stupid.
Mhm.
Like that's the only fear. It's like, but I mean, like we're allowed to look stupid. It's not looking stupid. It's just you're ignorant to what goes on in there.
Mhm.
But like after the first session, you're kind of like a Psych 101
Yeah.
first year college student. You just know everything, you
Eh,
know.
and what are yeah, it is like that. It kind of is like
Yeah.
that, man. It's kind of crazy. What are like some things that like that you do kind of to like get better on yourself every day, like things that you work on?
I just like musically, you mean?
Yeah, musically. Yeah, like in
like
the way
like
of like
sit down at like any instrument. I would say
mhm,
like pick up a guitar. It's like one of the cool things to do is like, especially after like a weekend of gigs, you might want to change your strings or put in a new battery just in case. And I like to do that because it's, you're making yourself do something for you and your instrument. But it's also like you get, usually a song comes out of that. Like I'll sit down and like playing on new strings is really inspirational for some reason. There's just like they feel good, they like just sound good, and it's cool. I try to do it at least, I usually do it once a week,
mhm,
but it something comes out of that for me, and it turns into either really good practice or a good song. Or
mhm.
if there's a piano somewhere nearby, I'll sit and play on that. Like I'm not really good at it, but I love the drama of piano.
Yeah. Mhm,
Uh, just try. I mean, it's all about like kind of trying to like push yourself or expand yourself. Push yourself isn't
mhm,
a good word, but kind of like it's like self-discipline as far as just focusing on, you know, what can I grow
mhm.
today? So something outside my window is constantly growing.
How
How
can
am
you
I going to
progress
grow
every day?
inside? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, whether it's just like getting like your hands looser or playing
Mhm.
smoother, or like, honing in like a new style, or like writing a song. It could be anything. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many options.
And what are some of like the so after let's talk about like after Nashville. So like you went to Nashville. What did you do in Nashville? Like what really happened for you there?
Well, I did I did pretty much everything that you're supposed to do. Like I checked off the whole list within 3 years.
Mhm,
I had I got a bluegrass band called the Graskels cut one of my songs, and that was my first 3 months there.
mhm.
And then they released it within that next year. And because they cut that song, I made my first record. And then it was, it was just crazy. I got to go overseas to Norway. Like we spent a couple days in London. It was awesome. Like
Mhm.
it was just a whirlwind. And then I got a publishing deal, and then I signed with the Hank Williams estate, and we were working like just everywhere, and it was fun. Like we were, everywhere we went, you get the celebrity pass, which always felt super fake to me, but
Yeah.
it was fun to keep. You have
Yeah.
that like that rack on your next to your doorway that holds all these old laminates that you're like can look back and reflect
But
on.
like I did that or I went that. And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
shows you back like all your successes, but also sacrifices that you kind of took. Like, was there any sacrifices that you had to take? Maybe things that like you had as road bumps, tough decisions,
Yeah.
maybe.
I mean, I think time is your ultimate sacrifice in this industry. Like it's all we have actually. And there's like some moments that you're not going to get back, or you're going to miss because you've committed to this fully. Like, I have friends that have like families now and stuff, and it's
Mhm.
weird. I'm sitting here as a 34-year-old, and I'm extremely single, and I'm like, I have zero regrets, but I kind of feel like I should, but I don't, because I know that I chose this. But
Right.
it's like time is the sacrifice, and it's a lot of why I moved back from Nashville, because I was coming home to play shows, and I was like, my dad is just getting progressively older and like walking with a cane and starting to lose like his short-term memory. So I'm like, I need to be here because this is something that I know if I don't focus on this, I will regret this.
Mm-hmm. And
And
regrets,
that just
the regret's
plays.
the biggest thing. Like you just don't want to regret not doing something.
Oh yeah, because a lot of the times you regret it because you realize you had control over it on the
Mm-hmm.
back end. Like if something had happened to him and I wasn't here, it would just be like one of those things where I was like, well, I could have been there, and I
Mm-hmm.
know that, but I'm here, so I don't have to regret that. I've gotten a lot of good time, especially over the pandemic. We had plenty of time. I
Mm-hmm.
introduced him to Netflix, and now he won't put the controller down. It's just crazy.
It's that is true. We had a lot of time to kill during the
Yeah,
pandemic, man. It was
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
So how was that? How was that year for you? Like, did it ever shift your route on the way you were going about things? Like, how was that whole year for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was crazy. I moved back to San Antonio in like November of 2019. So there was like, when did it start? February 2020-ish.
Like
And then it
around,
was
yeah.
like, yeah. So like I had like 4 awesome months of like playing music, and I was killing it, and I was getting back onto the scene and everything down here. And then it was just like immediate shutdown. You're like, oh, what do we do now? Like we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So like I locked down basically my dad and I, but luckily I had a record that I had recorded right before, like I finished recording it probably like October of 2019, like right before I moved back. And so I had this record that I was like, well, I'm not going to be touring, I might as well put this out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I did with my time. I released the record and did some press, because if you can't reach people physically, um you can at least provide them with new content, new
Right.
music and stuff. So I was lucky enough to have that.
So how was that shift for you? Like, how, oh, let me ask you this. Like, how important do you think like the digital space is in this form of like, marketing yourself as a musician and putting out content, and like what type of content to put out there? Like, how do you market yourself on a digital space and all the social media platforms as a music artist?
I think it's honestly like they've trapped us into a box where it is the avenue to go to. We don't really have much of a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, look at us. We're doing this virtually.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
everything's but it's convenient. This is like, I don't know, we don't have to meet up halfway between San Antonio and El Paso to do this. We could just do this.
Right.
Like I'm wearing a Bugs Bunny sweater, for Christ's sake. I'm
And
in
I love the
warm-ups.
sweater, man. I've been talking.
Thank you. It's ridiculous. Like it's like, but if I wouldn't, I mean, I do go out in public like this, let's be real, but yeah, it's convenient, and it's one of those things like that. Everything's going to drastically change. Like change is constant, is like most consistent thing in all of our lives, and we just have to deal with it. Well, I mean,
Mhm.
like honestly, as an art, it's an awesome tool. Like, yeah, Spotify doesn't pay enough in royalties. Like I could jump on that bandwagon of complaining, but like also I have fans in Brazil now
Mhm.
because of Spotify. Like I don't know anybody in Brazil. Like I can't get that to them any other way. Like
Right.
Spotify created that platform for them to be able to find it. Whether it was through like me posting something on social media, or like some type of marketing deal that went out, or like randomly playing on some internet radio that someone was listening to over there. I
Mhm.
don't know, but that's all because of like a digital presence. And you just have to utilize it.
Mhm. And so if it wasn't music that you were doing, like let's say, and I asked this question, it trips out a lot of like music artists. It's like, let's pretend music never existed. What would you be doing instead?
Well, I had a lot of people tell me that I should have been, actually, this is what they tell me. And they're artist friends, and they know that I'm very serious about music. They tell me sometimes that I should be a comedian, which I enjoy making people laugh, but it's not. I think about it though, like the stand-up comedy world, like, right,
Mhm.
you're writing a script to deliver to a crowd, and like I can make people laugh like on like improvisationally with like
Right.
dad jokes or something, but like it seems like a fun challenge that I might just try out at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
Mhm.
if I'm feeling peppy enough to do so. But like I might just be like in a different form of entertainment,
Mhm.
because I do enjoy uh people and making them feel good, whether it's via music and dancing, or like just
Right.
making them laugh or something. So that's
Mhm.
probably what it would be for me.
And as writing music, do you ever get like writer's block, and how do you even deal with that? Like, is there ever time like you start a project and then you stop a project and you don't like pursue it until like 2 years after or something like that? You know, like, do you deal with writer's block, or how do you deal with your
Man,
projects?
I don't think I have ever had to wait that long. Thank good, knock on wood.
I know.
But the yeah, no, I mean, writer's blocks are one of those things. It's like you can't force yourself through it. It's like plowing into the back of the car in front of you in a traffic jam. Is like, that's not going to do you any favors. You're just going to have to call the police and end up sitting there longer. You've just created even bigger traffic jam.
Right.
So like with a writer's block, you just have to do different exercises, like stay away from writing until like, everything clears out up here, because it's usually caused by stress or whatever's going on in your life. So like, just play your guitar, maybe something will naturally come out. Like, go to the gym, go for more walks, like take in some nature,
Mm-hmm.
just like focus on old tracks and maybe like how the production of that will sound, or if there's other songs you need to fix up that's just a couple words, go to that. Anything can knock it loose.
And what
But
what are like the oh, go ahead, go ahead.
oh, okay, I was just going to say, putting any type of negative attention on a writer's block will exacerbate the writer's block. It'll make it worse.
Yeah, exactly. I
It's
completely
like
agree with
picking
that.
at a scab. Like, it's just not going to end
Yeah,
well.
it's gonna make it worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's kind of, I think it's kind of the same for like an artist too. Like whenever an artist is painting or whatever, it's like sometimes they just don't know what to paint, and it's okay to put the paintbrush down, and just figure your
Totally.
thoughts and
Yeah.
everything. And
Yeah,
so,
because you're driven by a muse, and if the muse isn't driving you in that moment, you're just going to
absolutely.
go off the road. Like,
hmm
just put it down. Yeah.
Yeah. And my follow-up question, and the reason I kind of asked that too, is because like, what do you think are like the biggest mental, I guess, tolls that musicians face, like the biggest mental things?
I think for a lot of people, it's probably money, especially indie musicians. Like, they focus on money a lot, because we all have bills to pay. Like, we have to keep printing merch. We're trying to go back into the studio. Like, everything costs,
Right.
and you're paying. Whereas like the label, if you're on a label, they'll pay for everything. Granted, the artist owes on the back end, so it's all just one big trap. But like,
hmm
as an indie artist, it's just coming straight out of your pocket. So that can be a big stressor for you. Like, you're paying for your own gas,
Right.
meals, hotel a lot of the times. And like, you got to work on getting those gigs so you can keep supporting yourself and keep paying for
hmm
merch and keep moving yourself forward. So that's a stressor for a lot of people. And,
Right.
we talked about earlier, like family doesn't help sometimes. So it's
Yeah.
life in general can just be like right in your way a majority
hmm
of the time.
So I'm gonna ask this as kind of like, because I'd never done music before. That's one thing I'd never done. And for
Mhm.
anybody who's like also getting into music industry, like what's the biggest difference between entering like a label, whether from that compared to like going solo as an artist? Like, what are the biggest benefits and the biggest downfalls to though?
Uh, I would say that the biggest benefit to the label, I think, is that they put you out there more on a mainstream scale, because you are literally in the mainstream at that point. But the problem is, if the promotion and stuff has gone down drastically, like they take so much from the artist. We live in an independent world now. Like, we
Right.
are in the independent artist industry as we speak. Like, there's no reason anybody should be signing a label deal unless that's what you always wanted. But
Right.
I have to say, what you always wanted isn't always what it was.
hmm
Like, labels have drastically changed. They've gotten way worse. And I think they're the dinosaur of the industry. And I think they're going to tank out at some point, because they're basically having to pull in new funding or be funded strictly by themselves, which means that they're not pouring as much money into the artist unless
hmm
that artist is bringing back like really big dollars,
Right.
like Taylor Swift money, because there's no reason
Yeah.
otherwise. But like,
This
yeah.
example, like for example, Katy Perry, man, like she hasn't made a song in who knows how long, and she's still gaining a lot of money out of it, and like
Yeah,
she still does shows like nowadays, but like with like music from like 2010, but it's
yeah. I
it's
mean, she
crazy.
could do artists like that, but she's a pop icon. She became a
Yeah.
pop icon in her own time. Like her and like people like Miley Cyrus and stuff like that will always be able to do something. Because granted that they're both really talented too. Like, that's the
hmm
thing. Like, they can do that. It's just about accepting if you mind going back, or is your pride going to get in the way of
Right.
like, you know, you still, it's like, no, I want to make new art. It was like, yeah, I get that, but like no one wants to, a label would tell them no one wants to hear your new art. They're
Right.
like, I mean, some people probably do. Like that's Katy Perry we're talking about. Like
Yeah.
she's gonna be fine.
No,
Like,
well,
yeah.
like why I say
Yeah.
this is because like you see things like for example TikTok now, you see like Instagram
Oh
Reel, where
yeah.
like people like they just go on there and they sing the like something like with a cool little chorus or whatever, like cool little guitar strum or whatever, and they hit big,
Yeah.
they hit mainstream, and that's all it takes for
Yeah.
them to really get out there. Like they don't really need a lot of help from like management or record labels that like they can really make it on their own. And I always tell like for example models this, I'm always like it's better to pursue freelance modeling than getting signed by like some type of agency and they control your life. I feel like is that kind
Yeah.
of the same way like in a label where like they start controlling your life in a way.
Oh, absolutely. Well, they try to they control your career,
Yeah, your career.
which is
Yeah.
your life. Like
Mhm.
if you're an actual artist, but a lot of those people that blow up on TikTok, I know one specifically. I think Priscilla Block was a country artist. During the pandemic, she blew up on TikTok, and she immediately went and signed a label deal. I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like you had everything and you gave it, like basically gave it away, unless she signed some really good deal, which I doubt it. Because
Yeah.
some people just want the deal because it's like it's been on their bucket list.
Mhm.
But like,
It's like a title to them. It's like, oh, like,
yeah, it is.
yeah.
But like I said, like it's a thing of the past. What a label deal used to be isn't what it is now. And you have to pay attention to those changes.
Right.
It's like being aware in your industry. You have to be
Mhm.
aware of it because maybe it's like I said, maybe it's been beneficial like 10, 15. Well, actually, no, 20 years ago at this
Yeah.
point. Like, but now I would say, like, what are you doing? But yeah, like TikTok is a great platform. Like, if you have a song blow up on there, like, awesome. Like,
Yeah.
it's like one of the like great places to be plugged into and be. And like, um, it's another thing. Like, there's a lot of annoying stuff that comes off there, but I think it's fantastic. There's so many funny people that are like, especially during the pandemic, like it was really just a great lane for people to like really be themselves on there. Like that you saw people that were working cubicle jobs that are now like famous comedians or singers. They're like super talented though. Like I was like, I'm glad that you found this. I'm glad that you had this. Like this is because there's a lot of people out there that you never, there's billions of people and tons of songs that we've never heard because
Right.
they didn't have a platform like that.
Well, like you said,
Uh,
Spotify, like those like Spotify in Brazil and everything, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's an avenue, and like we just got to take advantage of it while it's there, you know?
And so let's talk about a little bit about the business side of things now. So like let's say you have all the talent in the world, like, but I have no clue where to get started. Like, where would you recommend, or not recommend, but like how would you advise in a way to like get started and putting your first foot in right and not making previous mistakes that a lot of people do? Or like what were some of the maybe mistakes like when you first got started that you did that you were like, if I could help anybody like who's barely starting out, like to avoid this, what would that be?
I would say don't sign within your first year, especially your first year, probably your first 2 to 3 years. Or if you can go your whole career without signing a contract, I would avoid those at all costs. But like my advice to younger artists is like they seem like a lot of people want to go straight to shows like The Voice or American Idol or something
Yeah.
like that. And like the you want to talk about bad contracts. I've read them all, and I'm assuming they've gotten worse because that's just what happens with shows over time like that. They get more and more desperate and take more and more. But
Mhm.
like I think the best thing that you can do for yourself as an up and coming artist is just get out there and start playing wherever you can, like writers nights, open mics, paid gigs, like whatever, just do it. Like
Right.
because that's how you know. That's when you figure out if you're doing the right thing. You get to
Absolutely.
see a live crowd response because people love music, but there's a difference between people hearing music and loving it or and hearing music that they love.
Absolutely.
Like so it's like and that'll show you if you're in you found the right thing, because if your response is so positive, that's like my experience when I first started. I was like, people actually like this. Like I enjoy doing this and people actually like this. Like
Mhm.
I should do this, and that's like one of those things. It's like right in front of you, slapping you in the face. You just accept it and give it a big hug.
Mhm.
But I say get out there and play because you're going to get so much from that. You're going to learn how to navigate an audience. You're going to learn about the industry because you're hearing stories from other road warriors. Like they'll give you advice, they'll give you more gigs. It's just the stuff that you get from uh getting out in the field, so to speak. It's like stuff you can't learn in a classroom. It's irreplaceable.
Right. And I always think about it too, like when in any field you're doing, it could be in music industry too, is like just have the patience and trusting the process. Like, for example, like you said, it took you like 3 or 2 years, to like do some or to get to somewhere, right? Like London and all
Yeah.
that. Like
Yeah.
I always tell everybody just kind of trust the process, but have patience with it too. But also like don't fear rejection, because a lot of people, they get rejected on their first 2 or 3, gigs. Maybe they want to go somewhere and somebody says no and they give up
Yeah.
on that, right? So it's like don't fear rejection in a way.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, well, rejection is necessary. Like it's
Yeah.
fuel for a lot of people. But I mean, like you're going to get rejected. It is what it is. Like for everywhere that you don't get in, you'll get in like a bunch other places.
Right.
Like because a lot of people in this industry, they wanna have you on as an artist just in case you do something someday and they could say that you played there. Like it's like
Right.
just about that with some people, which is cool. I'm cool with it. Like I'm looking for a gig, it's
Yeah.
uh and it's cool. You always meet people in those, and like even it's almost like don't say no to like if a gig sounds sketchy, say no to it. But like don't say no to a gig. Like even if it's not the pay that you want, I think you might get another gig off that. Like who knows? You might get a couple more gigs. You never know who's in the crowd.
Hmm.
Like it could be happening for a reason. Like pay attention to
It
that
takes
stuff.
one.
Just
It takes one opportunity to
yeah,
change your whole
yeah,
life. Yeah.
it really does. You never know.
Hmm. And so the last kind of two things I kind of wanted to ask you is, any type of, like, the very simple question is, any type of piece of advice that you would either give somebody, that somebody's given to you, or that it comes out from you. Like, what would that one piece of advice be?
Um, I would say don't start your set with a slow song.
Okay, I like
That
that.
was it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an old guy walked up to me as I was getting on stage and he was getting off stage. He was like, "Don't start with the slow song, Jeremy.
Mhm.
They're not ready for it." Because he had like just ended his set and it was an upbeat number, and I was like, I paid attention. And I was like, that's what I had. I had
Right.
I was gonna build up the crowd because you're like, oh yeah, I want to start off very even killed and build it up. But when someone goes on before you, they've usually left the crowd at this higher intensity.
That
So
is
you
true.
have to meet them there. So
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God, rearranging your set in your head. So it's another thing. Like I started paying attention to that after that.
Mhm.
And also like some people might only stay for one song. So if you
Mhm.
bore them to death with your first number, like you've
Yeah.
lost part of your crowd. Like you
Mhm.
got to reel them in somehow.
I feel like most of it's
Uh,
just like making sure that you entertain, or you have something to give to your audience or your fans, especially your fans. Like making sure that you're
yeah,
consistent with engaging with your fans. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and it's also some people. I mean, most like I go places. Most people don't know who I am, so
Right.
it's my job to like make sure that they want to know more about me or
Right.
something like via just doing a good job musically.
And I'm gonna throw in the question now is like, what is something you know now that you wish you would have known when you first got started?
I would say I wish I knew just overall kind of the industry better, which
Mhm.
seems kind of broad, but like the entertainment industry is disgusting. Like
Yeah.
it's filled with people who got into it for the wrong reasons. And unfortunately, like if you love music as much as I do and love this job, like there's no way around it.
Right.
Like you have to deal with those people, but like I wish I would have gone in with a thicker skin, because I'm very open to giving people chances, but like it goes back to what I said earlier about awareness, and that all ties into just protect yourself. Even because a lot of the things that you want to believe that they're real, you're just convincing yourself that because you want it to be that way. It doesn't mean it's true, but like just just protect yourself and go in with the knowledge that like the industry that you chose to be in is disgusting, but you chose to be into it, so you deserve to be honest with yourself about that.
Right. Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
You got to expect that there's going to be those failures, those downfalls,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
mistakes waiting to happen.
Yeah, be aware of what's occurring around you, but never lose sight of why you're there, because you're there because you're passionate about music. At least I hope you are. If you get into the music industry to make millions of dollars, you better have millions of dollars to start with.
Yeah.
Because it's ridiculous. Or
Yeah.
like maybe something will blow up. I don't know, but like
Mhm.
it's not a money gig. It's purely based on passion.
Mhm. And just to put the cherry on top, right? It's like kind of what you said in the very beginning. It's like just doing something that makes you happy, regardless of what everybody else thinks. Like just in general.
Exactly. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah, because like you
Like
said, like you said in the beginning, it's like, like somebody who's like old, and like they regret not doing something before, like like that they really wanted to do. So like, right, yeah, like you
yeah.
said, why wouldn't you?
Well, it's our job to learn from other people's mistakes, even if they choose not to learn from their mistakes. Like
Absolutely.
we are all examples for somebody else.
Mhm.
And some of them are good and some of them are bad, just like anything. So
And kind of like this last fun question that I have for you is like, if you were able to open up for anybody, who would you open up for?
living or dead, or do they have to be alive?
Anybody.
Man, I was a huge John Prine fan, and
Mhm.
he passed away. He died of COVID in see what was, I think it was March. It was like right at the beginning of it, but
Yeah.
I would have loved to open up for him. But so dead, he would be my answer. Also, Tom Petty was amazing, but living, I would say Jason Isbell in the 400 unit, because I
Yeah.
love those guys. That's
Yeah.
multi-part answer, but there you go.
COVID took a lot of people, man. COVID took a lot of
Yeah,
legends. It's
yeah,
crazy.
it did. I mean, people are just, I mean, we just lost Betty White too. Like
Oh my God, I know.
America's
I
grandma, man. Like what the heck?
I know, man. It's horrible for all of us, man.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, like before I let you go, just give yourself like a spiel for all our listeners, people who are supporting the podcast. Just where can they find you? Where can they reach out to you? Things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Again, thank y'all for tuning into this and supporting my buddy here. My name is Jeremy Parsons, and you can find me at jeremyparsonsmusic.com is the best place to go. I got tour dates and merch and all that other nonsense that you could ever possibly need from me is up there.
Yeah. Awesome, Jeremy. Well, hey, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you so much for taking out the time out of your day to just be on here and everything. Is there any like last words, any last things that you want to mention before I let you go?
No, man, I think I'm good. Thank you so much for having me and for doing what you do, man. I sincerely appreciate it.
Awesome. And yeah, that's what it's all about, man. It's just, reaching different cities, different places where we can just support all these different type of creatives, artists, big or small, everybody needs that support, and all that like kind of exposure in a way.
Absolutely, man. The
So
chain
cool.
of love, just
E-
keep it going.
Exactly, my man. So I'm gonna let you go, man. But thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. You have a good
All
one.
right, you too. Bye bye.
Bye.